Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is one of a number of videos that I'm making centered around Adobe Lightroom and a number of its features. In this video I'm going to concentrate on the library module and particularly looking at the Lightroom catalogue. Whenever I talk to photographers who are established Photoshop users and I ask them if they use Lightroom, many say no, and the reason they don't use Lightroom is usually that they don't understand the catalogue and how the catalogue works. And in particular they have uncertainty about where their images end up, and this is a big cause of confusion and puts a lot of people off using Lightroom, who are therefore missing out on many of the benefits of this great software. And I think the reason for this confusion is a big mistake that Adobe made when they initially designed the interface in Lightroom. We'll start off by opening up Lightroom, and as you can see I have an empty Lightroom catalogue. So I'm going to look at first of all the process of importing images into a Lightroom catalogue. Basically, card taken out of camera and put into a card reader. And so the first thing we want to do is import the images, and we have the import button right here for that. We'll start there and we'll get some images into this catalogue. So you will see here the number of drives and possible sources of images. These are various internal and external hard drives that I have connected to my computer. And as you can see, Adobe immediately defaults to a card reader and the images from the card. So these are images from a recent shoot I did at a music event, quite low light, very taxing for the camera. So what we'll do is we'll select some of these images. I'm not going to import them all. First things first, we should look here, because at the moment I have these three options here and I have it set to destination folders. That basically is setting out my images by date in terms of the structure that I prefer. If it was to go to all folders, we just have them all as a bunch. And we can also click on this feature, New Photos, because Lightroom will recognize photos that have previously been imported from the same card and will automatically grey those out. We're going to take all these folders, and what do we want to do? Well, in this circumstance we want to copy them from the card onto the hard drive or a drive in this computer. We have other options. We can copy them and convert them to DNGs. We can move them, and you can see that that is grayed out, and that's really grayed out because we're dealing with a memory card. If we were using, for instance, images from an internal drive, then the move and the add options would be there. But for the moment we're going to copy them from the SD card from the camera, and we're going to put them onto a drive in the computer. Well, the first thing we'll do is we're going to select a few of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to uncheck them all, and then I'm going to pick a few here that we'll import into this. We'll take those of Will McNichol, and there is one there that I want of Gary Lutton, and another one there of Niall Lynch, and that will do. We then go over to the file handling, and I have a number of options. As you can see, I've got quite a number of drives here connected to this, or within or connected to this computer. So we'll start at the top and work our way down. Lightroom works with preview images. That is what you're viewing. So it creates a preview from the raw file that allows you then to do your editing. The raw file is untouched when you are working and creating your edits in Lightroom. Even at the end of the process, when you decide to print or export a file, it's then that Lightroom applies those edits to the raw file to create a new image file that is either a temporary file sent into the printer, which disappears again after it's printed, or is exported in a file image format that you select. We have a number of choices here, and basically this depends on the size of the preview. So we can go for one-to-one previews, and these processes, basically a minimal preview will be a small file, it will be quickly made during the import process, but you may well find it is insufficient, and the software itself will create a larger preview file when you're editing. So for the moment we click on standard for this. Now there's a thing called smart previews. I'm not going to go into that. That's a feature if you're moving editing from one computer to another, say from a desktop to a laptop. I'm not going into that. Don't import duplicates. That's an interesting feature. It basically means if you've got two copies of an image, identical copies of an image, the duplicate won't be imported. In this case it doesn't matter, we don't have duplicates on this card, but we'll leave it ticked. The next thing is you've got the option to make a backup copy of the raw files, and you can specify where they go. So for instance, if you're working, as I am, on a desktop with internal drives, the working images will be transferred onto one of the internal drives, but I can also then at the same time transfer a copy of that raw file over to an external drive for backup. So you can do that, you can set that up. We can also add images to a collection. Again, that's getting a bit ahead of ourselves. At the moment we just want to copy the images from the SD card into or onto a hard drive in the computer and then bring those images into a catalogue. So we're going to do that. Now, renaming files. This is something you may wish to do or you may not. You have a number of options here of presets. You can edit those. You can rename these images as you like. And what I tend to do is, as you see here, is I keep the original file number, but I add a custom name. So I might put the text, the custom text in here as guitar, and then I will still have the number, which gives me the sequence, and I find it useful in that sense. And you can put in things like the shoot name and so on. You can change extensions, but I would advise that you just leave those alone. So at the moment, because I've not put in custom text, they will become untitled and then the number. And we'll maybe take that off for the moment and we'll just leave the file names as they are. So the next thing is I can apply develop settings and I can add some metadata. Now develop settings here, there are a number of presets, and these are various presets in the Lightroom catalog. Again, getting ahead of ourselves, these development presets. So in general, for the moment, we will just leave develop settings alone. So the next item on the list is metadata. Now metadata is additional data that can be applied to the files that can be useful. I have a number of presets. These can be edited. If we go into the preset editor, it initially comes up with custom and offers you the opportunity to insert information in all of these areas. I think the one that most photographers might want to pay attention to is to put in copyright information. You can put in your name, your website, you can put in your address, and that embeds that in the file. And I think that's something that really everybody should do when they're storing files. I have a number of custom presets that I can use, and I do them by year. Click done on that. So we're going to add some metadata. You can look through that at some point. The next thing is keywording. I think it's always useful to add keywords. You need to think about your keywording. That's a subject for another video because you could talk about that for quite some time. But you want to put in some basic tags to help you find these images again, doing a simple word search. And again, that's another thing that we can go into in a different video. But I would put in some keywords, say, for instance, just simply, but we can add lots, but we'll just do that for the moment. So those will be added to the imported images. Now the next big important thing is, where are these images going to go? Where do I want to put them? So you decide within your folder structure where you want the images to go. Say I do most of my image storage on this F drive, and as you can see there's a lot of stuff on there already. So for the moment I want to go into the 2018 folder, and in that maybe want them to go in a subfolder. For this particular occasion I want them to go in a subfolder called YouTube. Okay, so they're going to go in the YouTube subfolder, and then I'm going to have them sorted by date. And in this circumstance, I want them done by year, by month, and by day, in that order. And that's the most simple way of finding images, again, by date. If I know that I did a shoot in August of 2016, I can go to a folder labeled 2016 and I can go through to the 8th month, and then I will find the images, and that's where they will be. But if I want to look for them in a folder structure, this works for me. And in this case we're going to put them into a subfolder of 2018, but within that they're still going to be by date order. So we've decided what they're going to do, we've decided how they're going to be sorted, and you can see here where that folder is going to be. It's going to be in that 2018 folder, which we selected. It's going to then be in a YouTube subfolder of that under 2018, and then sorted by year, month, day. And so that's all the different things that we need to set up before we import these images. Now, what is going to happen when I click import is two things, not just one thing, it's two things. Number one, the images are going to be copied from the SD card into this F drive on my computer in the folder that we've specified, but they are also going to be entered into the Lightroom catalogue. And what does that mean? Now, a catalogue is a list. Lightroom is basically going to record the details of each of these files, particularly the name, and it's going to take all the information from the EXIF data. It will know everything about those images, and it's going to store that, and it's going to store that with the location that we have specified, so it knows what the file is and where it is. And that's what the catalogue is. It's a filing system. The import is a separate thing. We're doing both here. We're transferring images over onto a drive, but we're also cataloguing them, and that's a very crucial thing that we'll come on to in the next part of this. So click import, and here we go. So Lightroom is doing those two things. It's copying the images across, and it's cataloguing them. It's listing them. And I think this is where we come to the mistake that I think that Lightroom or Adobe made when they designed the interface for Lightroom, and that is they used the word import for both processes, but they are actually two separate things and can be done separately. I mean, I can go to a folder and I can, in Lightroom's terms, import those images into my catalogue without moving them. So what I'm doing in that process is cataloguing. I am listing those images into the Lightroom catalogue, so Lightroom knows what they are and where they are. It's not just a process of copying them across. It sometimes is, it sometimes isn't. And this is where people can get quite mistaken. So here are our images imported into our catalogue and also copied from the SD card onto our computer. And where has it put them? In the folder system. They're on the F drive 2018 folder, and they are, in fact, we can show, let me see, show parent folder. So in fact, on the F drive, they're in the YouTube folder 2018 and then by date. So there they are. And that is our images not only transferred but catalogued. This is the thing. If I decide to move those images, say my hard drive's filling up, as you can see my C drive is quite full, and if I wanted to move images out of a drive and into another drive, if I want to move my images within Windows, I would go to my folder, and there's the YouTube folder there, and I would decide where I'm going to move that. Let's just move it to we're going to take the YouTube folder, decide want to move that, and I want to store that on my desktop. So I take that and I grab it and I move it to the desktop. I have to hit shift to change that to move. So we'll move those over to the desktop. Yeah, I've got to go back into Lightroom and activate that. You can see immediately that there's little question marks there, and there's little asterisks at the top of each thumbnail here. Let's magnify those up, and you can see that photo is missing. And the reason the photo is missing, we know, you've just seen me do it, we moved them. And we moved them behind Lightroom's back. Lightroom was not involved in the process, doesn't know where they are. Lightroom's catalogue thinks they're on the F drive, in that YouTube folder on the F drive, and that ain't where they are anymore. And this is where the problem lies. Many people lose it. They say, I lost my images, I've lost the images. No, you moved them while you had Lightroom closed, and Lightroom then opens again. It doesn't know where they are. That is the problem. So what we can do then is, if we move, if I can remember how I did this, if we move that folder back, we have to move it, and there we go. And if we go back to Lightroom, they're back in the F drive, they're back where they're supposed to be, where Lightroom knew they were. So I think that's probably enough for this video. We've got our images into a catalogue, and we know where they are, and we can see how we can lose them. So in the next video, I'm going to deal with more aspects of the catalogue and moving images so that Lightroom knows where you're moving them. Okay, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.